Justin Myrick, discussing topics from education to finance. All the advice you'll need on life right here, you'll find it. With kings who weathered every climate and come out shining, so come and get it. My uncles and me. It takes 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 my uncles and me.
What's up, family? Thank you for tuning into the My Uncles and Me podcast, a podcast with a purpose where we have accomplished older men give advice to a younger man on their insight, their wisdom, their knowledge, how they got to be where they are, and what they would say to the younger generation that's coming up after them. So, if that's what you like to hear, then stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the My Uncles and Me podcast. Woo! Yes, now I hope you're as excited as I am, because today we have a very, very special guest with us in the house today, and let's just get right into it. Please welcome Uncle, do I call you Uncle Randy or Uncle
Absolutely.
Alexander?
That's what my grandkids, that's what we tell me, Uncle Randy.
Well, all right then. Please welcome Uncle Randy to the My Uncles and Me podcast. Woo! All right, so let me read his bio, just so you can know. I know who we have on here, but I want my fellow viewers to know who we have on here. So, a few of the phrases or the words that just really describe him are: won't back down, takes a stand, despises bullies, relentless, resolute, kind, generous, compassionate warrior, intelligent, likable, and personal. And y'all, he is very personal, okay? I've seen him interact with a variety of people, and he has just been extremely welcoming to everybody that he's come across, okay? We have overcoming hardships, health, medical, genetics. Now, also a USAF veteran, so let's just clap that up too. We always gotta show respect to our veterans and the people who really fight for this country and help make it what it is.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, so self-made. I mean, just, it's a lot of words. There are a lot of words.
Because I'm old, I've done it a lot of times. I remember I was your age not long ago, and all of a sudden I look in the mirror and I'm like, who in the heck is that? You know, so
Well,
I've been a while.
You have a very young energy about
thank you.
You know, I've seen a lot of people where they do get older, and you can tell that their spirit or their demeanor's also gotten older too. You know, you're very energetic, you're very lively. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's sort of, I guess it is like keeping you young. I guess
It is
very.
Yeah, it is, and that's part of it. And my wife, it has a lot to do with that. She's very young. She's older than me, and everybody says how did you get such a beautiful young wife? And she's 7 years older, actually. But she's a wonderful person, and she had her children young. I do not have any biological children. I have stepchildren, who I love very much. But it's the attitude, it's the mentality. And even after what I've been through with my health, there's days like I felt like 150 years old. You know, my body, but my spirit was just keep going. I just don't give up. You got to move forward.
Exactly. Now, I do have a question. At the table reading for wings, which we will get into, by the way, did she make the macaroni and cheese?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Tell her.
She did. That was Carol's
good.
macaroni and cheese.
That was good. I was genuinely surprised because at first for some reason I was thinking it might have been like catered.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
no.
This is really
and if you
good.
make me look good, I'll make sure you get a big old crock pot of macaroni and cheese.
Well then, let's make him look good today. Now, shan't we, fam? Let's make him look good now.
So do a good job.
You know. So, but no, definitely. 'Cause I was like, this is really, really good. So, no, but I really like. How long have you guys been together?
22 years.
Oh.
I married late in life. I was very career-minded. I went into the Air Force after high school. Then I wanted to specifically go to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University so I could get an education on the GI Bill, which I did, and then get out of college, and I wanted to sell corporate jets. which I did. And things were going along pretty good. And then one day I started feeling pretty bad. And then it got worse and worse. And I was this ripe old age, 33. And I went to the doctor. I was very depressed. I had a lot of medical, I just didn't feel good. I knew something was wrong. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, you got a rare disease. It's an iron thing, and you're going to die in 6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
Wow.
I was 33. And I spent 8 hours in the lobby, just frozen in time, thinking, what? 6 months? And I worked very hard, and I was very successful. I was going places. I was doing things. I was a part owner of an air charter company for a while in Greenville.
Wow.
I came out of here, from when I came up out of college. And I fell in love with South Carolina, especially upstate. And then this happened, and it's like one thing led to another. And then I says, okay, well, if I'm going to die in 6 months, well, what caused it? What is it? Well, we don't really know. So long story short, I got something called hereditary hemochromatosis. It's a genetic disorder in Caucasians of Northern European descent. And I went to the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, down the road, and said, would you please look at this? What are you doing with this issue? And they go, it's junk science. There's no such thing. And I go, okay, well, I've been sick. My father died recently. I think there's something more to this. No, this is junk science. So I wound up going, and I wound up getting some doctors that I researched. And I was before the internet. So it was networking.
So you, really?
This was in the early 90s.
Wow.
I was diagnosed with this in 1989. The first person in South Carolina actually documented.
Really?
Yeah. And so the CDC, long story short, this is really fun. I love to say this story. After 3.5 years, I started a nonprofit for my mom's kitchen table with not a dime. So you can do anything you want if you're motivated to do something. I wanted to help other people not go what I went through the pain, because I was almost suicidal. And so I started a nonprofit. I brought in doctors who were studying this. They were from everywhere from Germany, Australia, the Netherlands, California, Michigan, New York. I mean, they were all over the place. And they were not getting any traction, any research money. They weren't getting anything. So I contacted them through networking, which I'm a big networker. And,
I can tell.
Yeah.
You're really good at that.
And so I was able to bring these people and said, okay, let me sit down. We got to get this information out. So how do we do it? So I listened to the doctors, how to get the information documented. And then I went to government to get awareness and some funding to help these doctors to write books and articles and travel. So I started the Iron Disorders Institute, and I was able to, 3.5 years later, the CDC sent me a letter. The director said, thank you, Mr. Alexander, for all the work you and your organization have done. We have determined that hemochromatosis is the most common genetic disorder in human beings. And I was
The most common.
common. It affects 1.5 million people in the United States. And if you have an area where there's a lot of Scotch-Irish, German, because my family's Scotch, it's 1 in 120 in South Carolina. So 1 every 1, and when I went to Congress, I used to put these demographics out to Senator Hollings, Senator Thurman, different people, and said, this is what we're going through, and we need some attention. And I got the National Institutes of Health to establish a 30-year study. I got them funding for that, to do a 30-year study on families with this. And it was the first genetic disorder that was discovered by the Human Genome Project that they could actually do something about. It was something because getting a diagnosis was a treatment. Because ask me what that is. Ask me what the treatment is.
Okay, so what is the treatment?
The treatment is, I hated it. It is giving blood.
Really?
Lots of blood.
Like how much blood exactly are we talking?
I gave 2 pints a week for 8 months.
Really?
Yeah. And then
That's a lot of blood.
Oh yeah,
That's
and
a
then
lot
it
of
was
blood.
really great.
So what do they do with the blood then?
Well, here's what another part of my story is that they threw that blood away. They put a biohazard sticker on the blood and dropped it in a trash can in front of me.
Wait, they can just do that?
Yeah, they
Like, they
did.
could just literally-
Because they thought it was toxic with iron, but it wasn't full of toxic iron. What the body has is stored at the iron stored in your organs. So you basically siphon off a pint of blood. It tells your body you're a pint low. Then it kicks out. The bone marrow kicks, it uses up for the red blood cells. And it's a process. So I did that. $200. And I didn't have hardly any money because I lost my job in insurance by this time because I couldn't work. So I was getting, somebody was just taking my blood and like throwing a part of me away like it was biohazardous. So
That sounds like a movie by itself.
well, the
Like, that
Surgeon
sounds like a movie
General,
by itself.
Dr. David Satcher, who was our first black Surgeon General, who was a wonderful man. I knew him quite well. He was a very outstanding man. And he told me, he says, Randy, he says, I need your help. And here's little old me, Randy, from South Carolina. And here's Surgeon General asking me for help. And I'm thinking, this is really interesting. Right. But I had made a name for myself, getting out there and trying to do something for other people and not just for myself. And I wasn't asking money for me. I was asking money to help other people. And this was a very big problem. And so he says, we're going to have the Blood Safety and Availability Committee is going to meet in Bethesda. And it's, up in Washington. Would you make a presentation so we can hopefully use this blood?
And so what year was this? If you were diagnosed in 1989, then...
This was in 1998.
Oh.
1998.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, because, that was the blood shortage. Nobody ever was screaming, we need blood, we need blood, we need blood.
Wait, there was a blood shortage too?
Oh, yeah. There was a huge blood shortage back in those days. People were not motivated to give blood. And then the problem was we had AIDS, and people were scared of the blood infections and needles and things like that. And so we were able to, I did a presentation, and myself and other people, and we did a presentation, and they changed the blood safety and availability policy and said, okay, well, now we can use the blood. And it literally, almost overnight, changed the dynamics of the blood system, American Blood Centers I worked with, the Blood Connection. I told the new director of the Blood Connection, I said, how'd you like to have all the blood you could possibly have and not have to pay for it? And he goes, that's impossible. And I go, no, it's not. Let me show you how.
So what was that like, knowing that you've, helped, have that type of impact on millions of other people? Who need blood transfusions.
It's really interesting because, you need blood, but getting the awareness that people were told that this was all in their head, that there was no such thing. This was, we had to overcome because there was nothing written. There was only a small paragraph in the Merck medical book that said, iron overload, bronze man's diabetes, if it's not treated, this could be fatal. They didn't know anything about it.
And so that was like all the documentation
That was
they
it.
had on it.
That was it.
So they go from like documentation,
Yeah.
just one little paragraph, to literally having like books.
And
written.
what I had was a young doctor out of college, Dr. Mark Princell, who is still practicing. He's over in Greer. And Mark and I, he says, there's something here, but he figured it out. And he says, we're going to try these blood treatments. We're going to do this. So long story short, I went to Washington, got lots of money, $7 million, got a lot of books on the subject written and published, and then was headed when they found the gene. That I made the gene announcement for the genetic discovery, worldwide gene announcement about that with Mercator Genetics. And so the whole purpose of me going into this tirade is that would consume so much of my life. And I was told that it was all in my head, that I wasn't sick, I was lazy. It was just one thing after another. And my family, other than my mom, were not very supportive and helpful.
Really?
Yeah, I had
I'm
brother.
surprised. Like,
Well, I
if
had
you
a
have
brother
this-
and a sister-in-law that were horrible.
I'm surprised that if you would have this like legitimate medical illness, they would.
Because they think, you don't know anything. Doctors know it all. Well, guess what? Doctors don't know it all. And Justin, every doctor I've had to teach them about this along the way.
Now, what is that like teaching your doctor, you know? Like,
You got to get someone like Mark Princell, who I absolutely love. Mark Princell saved my life. And my current doctor, Dr. Mark Kniffer, saved my life because I've had other issues. Is that if you get a doctor who is open-minded and will listen to the patient, that's everything. Then you can work together. It's just like anything in life. If you can work with people, you've got to be able to do anything in this world. You've got to have other people to help you. You're not going to do it by yourself. I went to Washington, I get up there, CDC says, we need money. I says, okay, we'll go ask Congress. And they go, oh, it's not that simple. And I says, why? And he says, because Dr. Ray Yip, who was a leading hematologist at the CDC and iron deficiency expert, said, well, because we can't go to Congress and lobby, but you can. And I go, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, you go ask for money. And I go, for Congress? He goes, yeah. I said, okay. So I said, so I got some little bit of money for my family, and I says, I'm going to Washington. So I flew up there and got out of the taxi cab. And he goes, taxi cab says, where do you want to go? It was like in the movie. I says, going to go to the Russell Senate Office Building. That's where Thurman was, Senator Thurman. And so I get there, gave him my fee, it was $20. And I get out, and I was dressed up and had my case. And I got there, and I'm all official looking. And I go, oh, hell, now what the hell do I do?
right. Because it's like such a...
And I looked
like
at
a
this,
daunting
it was
task.
literally a movie. It's like, if I ever have a movie done about this, I'm just going to look at that. What
Like,
am
I think
I
this
going
needs to be a movie. 'Cause
do?
the more I hear about it, the more I'm like, whoa. You know, like, this just seems like a huge story about, like, overcoming.
Yeah.
You know? Also, I do have another question about, I guess about, like, aviation, because I do have some plane-related questions.
Good.
Yes, I do have some
Good.
plane-related questions. So, how exactly did you get into, okay, well, before we go on, I guess, what would you say about anyone who's sort of overcoming, I guess, a huge medical diagnosis, especially, because we just talked about, you know,
Yep.
my family, but also given that we are living in, like, a post-pandemic society, you know, what would you say about overcoming, you know, huge medical diagnoses and stuff like that?
Okay, well, some of it might be a little controversial, what I might say, but it is going to be basically, number one, the medical community, not everyone has the same education, the doctors, nor the same motivation. Unfortunately, in our medical community in this day and age, is that there is a lot of motivation for making a profit, as opposed to diagnosing a person and getting them well. If you get somebody well, what happens? You don't have to go back to the doctor, or you have to buy the medicine, you don't have to buy this appliance, you don't have to buy this, you don't have to buy that. That's how our medical society, how medicine is set up. Pharmaceuticals, so much with the cancer that I had, what really turned me around, that gave me strength. Now, I had chemotherapy. It was very intense. It cost $700,000 for the treatments that I had for 6 months. It was a very rare, aggressive cancer, and they didn't think I was going to live. And Sloan Kettering Research Institute in New York City, with 14 doctors, consulted with my doctor and said, this is what we think, might work. We don't know. And because my cancer is so rare. And so what I was able to do is I took natural ivermectin and vitamin C, and it helped me a lot. Did it cure me? No. Did it help me? Yes. And so what I would say is that there is a place for natural medicine and treatments, and for people to think about that. Don't say, that's nothing. Pharmaceuticals have only been around since the 30s.
Really?
Yeah. You didn't have drugstores back then. You had apothecaries. You had people who had knowledge of herbs. You had people who had knowledge of treatments and stuff that goes back to even to the Indians, our Native Americans, and talking about how what herbs and roots and things they have. And so much of all of our medicine is based on the herbs and plants, and it's not all chemical. It wasn't created by, or natural. It was natural, and then it became a chemical pharmaceutical. And that's where the money's at. And it's trillions of dollars. Not billions. Trillions of dollars. Now, I've seen this through the hemochromatosis. When I went to GlaxoSmithKline, Novartis, some of these big drug companies, they were interested in seeing, okay, how can we get a pill to make money? And when they found out that the treatment was so simple, it was blood loss, and that you didn't have to have a pill, and that iron, once it's in the body, in the organs, it's not excreted. It's not easily excreted. It has to be taken out through blood. So they go,
Like, how can we still monetize this?
How can we monetize? Exactly. Mm-hmm. And they thought, how did we do that? And you know what? It wasn't going to be very profitable. And they told me that to my face.
Oh, they actually said this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, they had no problem saying that.
Now, see, Mom is a huge proponent of natural remedies, like honey.
Absolutely.
She loves, she'll buy, won't she, Dad? Yes, she will. She will buy up jars. And we talked about this last night, too, because I was asking her. I was like, because I think you talked about, what was it, the murder hornets? Yeah, it was the murder hornets. But pretty much about how someone stole, 1 million bees. And she was like, do you know how, detrimental that could be to the ecosystem?
Oh, it's
given
tremendous.
That, bees are responsible for so many remedies. And she says it's stuff that... And I was surprised when she was telling me all that they were responsible for. I was like, and the thing is, you don't hear people talk about these types of things about, it's responsible for this, and it can also help with this, and it can cure this, and you're like, wait, this...
You want to know why?
This one little...
You want to know why?
Money?
Oh, yeah. The Rockefeller Foundation, David Rockefeller, with Standard Oil, gave money to Harvard, to different institutions, medical schools, and they gave him so much money that he got control of the medical information and the curriculum and did one thing very quickly. The old natural remedies are, that's witchcraft. That's nothing. You don't want to do that. Because pharmaceuticals are based on petroleum. And what did he have? Petroleum.
Oil.
And they were and look what's around. The world's in turmoil if they can't get access to oil, because it's in everything that we have. It's plastics, it is pharmaceuticals, it's a derivative of it. And so now, am I saying that all medicines are bad? No, I absolutely am not going to say that. But there is too much of a consensus, and the brainwashing of all these medical... when you go on a TV show, what's the commercials, most of them?
Medical. Ozempic.
Exactly. It used to be in the old days when I was a kid, it was beer and it was cigarettes.
and doctors said cigarettes were good, too.
Oh, yeah.
I remember they
because the movies... Everybody had a cigarette. Everybody had a cigarette.
Oh, everybody had a cigarette. I was like, man, because I saw a YouTube comment where someone was like, man, the 1940s must have really stunk, because everybody had a cigarette back then. I know about Rockefeller. I was reading somewhere where he was talking about, because it ties into what you were saying about how he controlled certain information.
Controlled everything,
He was saying about the education system. He was talking about, he was like, I don't want an education system that produces thinkers. I want an education system that produces workers. And when you think about it from his perspective, it makes sense. If you're someone who has factories, you don't need people who think, you need someone who works. But then if you're on the outside looking in, you're like, whoa, that's a ruthless...
But if you have thinkers, then you have competitors, because everything starts with an idea. An idea. It's like what I'm doing now. It's an idea. What Michael Dinko and I do. It's ideas.
And I want to talk about that.
Yeah. And so what I did with my hemochromatosis work was I had an idea. I didn't have any money. I didn't know how I was going to get to do anything.
Right.
But I did it because I was so determined. And that's part of one of the things I want young people to know is that you need to, if you feel strongly enough about something, be determined, have that determination, that resolve. Do not give up. Never, ever get up. If you do, you don't know what you could have accomplished in your life. My grandmother, the greatest gift that I got with the issue of the iron overload, I got a standing ovation from 2,500 doctors in Geneva, Switzerland. Thought I was a medical doctor. They said, you're an MD. And I got up in front of all these people, and because we were talking about health and information on the internet. And it was called Health on the Internet Conference. And they had me listed as an MD. And I says, I'm not a medical doctor, but I am an MD. And they like, what? Looking at me. I says, because I am most determined to inform you of what people are suffering from. Mm-hmm. And we want the right information on the internet. We don't want the bad information because the internet is good and bad.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You can have good and you can have bad. It's like money. You can do good, you can do bad. So it goes back to the people, what you want to do and your motivations and who you are and what kind of a person you are or who want to be, or are you going to want to make money? I mean, for my young life, I had a buddy in college. He goes, Randy, when you get out, because I was very active in different things. I got a $250,000 road improvement project from the state of Florida as a student at Embry-Riddle for a bicycle path, because I almost ran over one of our students because the road was bad and we needed a bike path. And I said, I'm going to get that fixed. And they go, you can't fight City Hall. And I go, I have no intention of fighting City Hall. I'm going to work with them. Mm-hmm. That's what I do. I develop relationships. I work with people. Do I get along with everybody? No. Does everybody agree with me? No. Does everybody like me? No. But I get things done. And I don't care what people may think of me. I am going to do the right thing, and I am going to get things done.
And one thing I've heard about money is that it either, it kind of exacerbates who you really are.
Yeah.
I've heard it's like, if you're a good person, then when you get money, you're going to be an even better person. If you're a crap person, you're going to be an even crappier person. And I've seen a few podcasts where they're like, they didn't like me before, but now that I've got money, and I was like, maybe they didn't like you because you just weren't a good person before, you just weren't a good person,
Yep.
So it's interesting. But I do want to ask you about, I guess, your time in aviation and then how that led you over into the film industry. Because when I was reading, or when he was telling me about his backstory, I was like, wait, so you went from, I was like, okay, so you went
it's very confusing
to this, and then you're back over here, and you're like right here. It's a lot, so it's like the more.
That's what makes me interesting. I'm more interesting than the Modelo beer guy.
Yeah, it's like the more I found out, the more I had questions, But how do you get to, what made you want to get into aviation?
I was a child. I watched a TV show called The Whirlybirds. It was two helicopter pilots that flew around and saved people and did fun things and everything. Then I watched Sky King. It was another guy who was a strong, who was a rancher that had what was now a Beechcraft Bonanza, twin Bonanza, flew around and got rid of bad guys and saved the country and did great things. And I thought, man, that looks so much fun. Oh, that would be so cool. And I was 13 years old, and I says, I want to try that. I think that's kind of what you did with acting, with entertainment. You want to try it.
I saw it. I was like, what? And then
so my dad goes, well, I think you need to fly airplanes. I don't think you would like helicopters. And I go, okay. And I go,
so he completely swore you off helicopters.
Yeah, he kind of. But he goes, this is a funny story because he says, I'm going to take you. We didn't have much money. And he worked, and he got some extra money. And he says, I'm going to take you down to the airport in Fort Myers, because I grew up in Southwest Florida, and give you an airplane lesson and see what you think. Mm. And I got in that little airplane. It was a Cherokee 140. It was a little, back in, was this 1966, 67? Ancient times to you. And said, and I got in here flying, and it was like, wow, this is cool. And I was like, okay, I'm looking around, okay. And I'm not particularly fond of heights, to be honest with you.
Wait,
so this is
you're
kind
an airplane salesman.
I hate bridges.
Yeah,
My God.
But
It's
yeah,
another
you
story.
don't like
I have
heights.
fighter pilot friends that hate to be on roofs. I mean, they'll fly.
Really?
Oh yeah, this is crazy. Give me back
funny.
another show and I'll explain this. But I got that experience and I said, I got to do that. And then all my friends, I wasn't good in sports, and everybody was good in sports, and I wasn't good in sports. And I thought, but I could be good at something different. And it was pilot.
I like that. Write that down. You can be good at something different, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the same approach that I had when I started, you know?
Exactly.
I was like, I liked playing basketball with my friends after school, and we would, all four of us, we would play until our parents picked us up.
But where was it going to take you? Were you going to be a professional basketball player?
And plus,
or what do you think you had? It was a social event.
And I was really only doing it because my friends were doing it, you know? I was like, oh, you know, my friends are doing it. But part of me was like, oh, but I really like acting. And, you know, and plus my brother, he was into sports. My older brother, he is like football, track, baseball, like he was that, you know. And so and then I come along and I'm like, oh, I really like the arts. But it was something different. And especially in Spartanburg, in the upstate, that wasn't really done a lot, you know.
Well, what I did was ultimately is that I went to the airport, my hometown airport, rode my bicycle like 3 miles, and I'm surprised my mom, you know, in those days, I mean, you know, it was not like today as much as kids disappearing and stuff. Unfortunately, but I went and I decided, okay, I made friends at the airport, and people said, oh, you want to learn how to fly? Okay, well, I'll pay you a little bit if you wash my airplane. And I said, okay. And I did really good at it. I washed the airplane and I used it for flying lessons, and then I worked with the airport manager, and he says he had a couple of planes. He was a flight instructor, and he says, well, if you do these chores, I will take you flying. And this is what I did. And then I says, okay, then I met other pilots and people, and I was so infatuated with these jets pulling up and people who fly. I said, they actually have airplanes and jets. You know, who does that?
Right.
Rich people and business people.
Well, I was going to say, I was like, very rich people, wealthy people, yeah.
Very. And I was not in that category. So I decided, you know what? I want to have something in my life that I really could dream about and really work hard for and achieve it. And then I decided, so I'm going to go in the Air Force. So I get the GI Bill, and I decided, okay. And I worked on jet fighters. Worked on F-4Es in Bitburg, Germany.
Really?
Yep, for 2 years. And then I worked on one of the very first F-15A Eagles.
You know, what was that like when they first came out with the new plane?
That was a brand new technology. Matter of fact, Senator Goldwater would fly down from Washington down to Langley. I was in Langley, Virginia, which is not Langley, the CIA. It was Langley Air Force Base, and which is still there today. And it was brand new technology. Everything was state of the art and new. And so I was able to interact with people who were looking at this technology. I was hand selected because I had a lot of accommodations, and I had done very well at Bitburg, and so they selected me to go to Langley. And then I went there, did good, got out, went to Embry-Riddle, where I wanted to go, which is now the Harvard. It's called Harvard of the Sky. Very, very highly prestigious, and because my generation made it that way, quite frankly. And then then I went and was selling airplanes, and then I got sick, and then I started a nonprofit, and then I got into the healthcare, and worked for that for almost 18 years, and was a consultant in Washington, and helped with people with getting to aerospace contracts and healthcare contracts and issues. I worked with a lot of new technologies with people, universities, and companies who had different things that the government needed. Right. And so we helped them navigate those waters to get into government, because it's relationships. Right. It's building relationships. And anything I want to say, you build relationships in your life. If you do not build relationships and you cannot sustain them, you're going to go nowhere. You cannot do it by yourself. You will not do it. And for anybody that's out there that's looking on their phone and they do not have any personal interaction with other people, I would put the phone up and immediately start getting involved on a personal level with other people.
Ooh, that sounds a lot like what my parents would say.
It's true.
Like what
It's
they
very
would say.
true. I see it, and it's very, very disturbing.
And so, how did you meet Mikey?
No,
Because
he called me out of the clear blue.
Really? What was that like, having Mikey call you?
I thought he was a little con artist.
What?
Yeah,
Really?
I thought he was. He calls me up, and I had I had been on a number of podcasts with a friend of mine, and out of London, and so. I had talked about healthcare issues and big pharma and some political things that I really, was very upset with how government was treating people from what my experiences in government and working with people that helped and were good people. And then some of the things that just, how the country's gotten so divided. It was just very sad. And so I had a lot of podcasts that I did. And
So it's not your first rodeo then.
yeah, and Mikey saw me, and then I put a thing on TikTok. Now think about this: how many millions of people are on TikTok?
Billions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I put a little short,
Wait, you're on TikTok?
Yeah. This little guy's on TikTok. I love TikTok.
I need to go follow you on TikTok. I never thought about you being on TikTok, honestly.
Really?
No, sir. You don't seem like the type of person, not because of your age. You just seem like you're very busy. Like you're very, very busy.
Oh yeah, but I
like
learn a
you're-
lot, and I've made a lot of relationships. I had a gentleman that helped me named Tony Hadar, who he helped me lose 40 pounds. He was an international male fitness model and coach, and he's coming to visit. And I've never met him. He is a Christian from Lebanon, and he's coming here. And I'm going to be able to meet him in the flesh. I've been talking to him for a year and a half. But going back to relationships, I've met people who I greatly admire. And I see people and I look for talent. I look for people who may need a break or need some kind of advice or something with healthcare or something that I have an expertise in that I could help them with. And I find it very fun. And it's a social interaction. It is. And I gravitate more to young people than I do older people.
Right. Because you got that, that young spirit,
Yeah. But Mikey called me. He saw me on TikTok. And he goes, and of all these billions of people, how in the heck did he find me? I'm just like, I got 2,300 followers. I'm just 2,300 followers. Help me out. Show me how I can
Make
do
sure
it.
to go follow Uncle Randy
Follow
on
me,
TikTok.
please. I need
Follow
at
him
least
on
another
TikTok,
100,
y'all.
please. Okay. So, and I don't post a ton. That's probably why. But anyway, so he says, he texts me. He goes, dude, I got to talk to you. I love what you're saying. I love how you put it out there. I just think you're awesome. Give me a call. And I go, okay, because I wanted a creator and somebody help me with a podcast. So I call him up and he goes, man, you do not need a podcast. Nothing about you. Nothing about you. He goes, you need a TV show. And I go, I don't gonna do a TV show.
Right.
And I was, how am I gonna do a TV show? And he goes, because my wife and everybody says, Randy, and my friends tease me, I have a better radio voice than I have a look. So I'd rather be on a podcast. I said, Mikey, I ain't gonna be on no daggum TV show. So anyway, so he goes, no. So I talked to Mikey for about a month before I realized that he was really a good, down-to-earth guy.
Right. He was like legit.
And I kept calling him Mickey. And then he finally says, hey, it's Mikey, by the way.
So he went through a month like that.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I didn't really know who he was because I've had some scoundrels in my life that have oh Jesus, that's a whole nother show. You deal with people that you say one thing and do another.
Yes. Don't I know?
Yeah, well, yeah. And so I said, okay, but I really like this guy. There's something very authentic and real about Michael Dinko. And then he was so fun. He was so very energetic and he was so passionate. He says, I want to make a difference in this world. I'm sick and tired of what we're seeing. You cannot get good entertainment. When can you take children to a movie and feel comfortable? You can't. And so he says...
And so that's what led to...
Yeah, and he says, I want to do a TV show with you. And then he says, have you ever heard of Pit Bulls and Parolees? And I go, yeah, but I don't know nothing about it. And I thought that this guy was some little guy. Oh my God, this man is huge.
Yes, Mikey is...
He's huge.
Mikey's
And guess what we found out this past year? Past year, he and I have the same birthday.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
January
wow.
13th. It was hysterical. We have the same birthday.
So what has it been like, I guess, starting up Fearless Edge Studios? And can you tell us just a little bit about it, you know?
What it is that we're not no huge, big, you're not going to go through a gate in some big studio and stars and everything.
Well, not yet.
Not yet. But what we're doing is that we are, because of technology, is that we're able to, and working with some very creative people like yourselves and your family, you know, with Stisa Talent Agency, we've hired you guys to help us a lot with our movie Wings, and we're going to have a long relationship. And because going back to the relationships is when you find good people that you can work with, and people who I've greatly admired you for a very long time. Because because I've told you so many times, hey, you're smart, you're motivated, you are a good role model, and that's what we need more than anything now is a role model for young people to aspire to want to do something besides sit in front of a phone and be on a soap opera or something that is just not real.
Right.
We got to bring people to reality, and there are things in life that happen. There's good things and bad things, and you got to know how to deal with it. And then with the movie industry, Mikey, I don't have a background in the movie industry, but I have a background in business, in relationships, raising money. I have done these things, yes. And it's like there's a triangle in this industry. If you have money, you can be in this business. If you have relationships, you can be in this business. If you have different ideas, you can be in this business. Now, but you got to have the three.
Oh, so you need to have all three.
You really kind of do to get it. You can get one. If you got a lot of money, you can do anything. If you got good ideas, you got to find the money to get it. Okay. And then but if you can get in there and get a part of that club and get in there and be taken seriously, then you have opportunities. And so, somebody coming off the street and say, I just want to be an actor or I want to be, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of, you've got to pay your dues. And young people do not want to pay their dues. A lot of people, well, I don't want to say young people. Oh, yeah, all kinds of people. They don't want to pay their dues. They want it now. They want instant gratification. That's not the way it is. I didn't get instant gratification on anything. Every time I've turned around, doctors telling me I was going to have some other disease or disorder. I've died almost 3 times in 5 years. Okay? But I'm still getting up because I'm not going to die in my chair. I'm going to do something, and I'm going to leave this world a better place like Mikey wants to do.
You're still fighting.
And we're going to do it in film because you can tell stories and you can get points across subtly without getting in their face. I don't want to preach to people. I don't want to say, you're doing wrong, you should do this, you should do that. I want to get them to convince them and inspire them and to do it in a way that they're going to be, oh my gosh, like little kids are inspired about the aviation and the airplanes. They want to do it. It's,
right.
and with Stisa, you got a lot of young kids who want to be actors.
And they're really good too.
They're good. And one of the things, I grew up in a negative, I love my mom and dad. But my dad, they were kind of negative. They were very negative. Oh, you don't want to dream too big. You don't want to do this. You better not do that. Right. You'll be disappointed. No. Dream. If you want to be an astronaut, an actor, whatever you want to be, do it. If you are a parent, stand behind your child.
And so that's
and
Tuesday for
support
young
them.
people.
Exactly. And I tell it to the parents. Parents, stand behind your child. Believe in your child because you don't know what they can accomplish in their life. And if you snuff them out, if you snuff out all their creativity and their excitement and their energy, that's what children, they should be inspired.
And I like that because, And you know, I do like that because we do talk about a lot of young people, but if they don't have the support system that they need,
Exactly.
then they can't do anything, you know? And I have seen that where the young people they're really talented, they have the spirit, but they don't have anybody
A support.
helping them.
That's
you know?
exactly
So
right.
I want to say thank you, Uncle Randy. It has been awesome having you on the show. We might need to do a part 2 because I could tell you could go on and on and on and on and on. And I still got a couple plain questions that I want to ask you. But no, I really do appreciate you coming on today. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Anytime.